Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech as we get ready for the Red Raiders and North Carolina State. Coming up Saturday night, we're taking a closer look at Tech QB Donovan Smith among his Big 12 quarterback colleagues. Those healthy, those presently available to start a football game. Where does Donovan Smith fall? Maybe closer to the top than you might expect. We'll also look around the Big 12 conference slate of games for the weekend and have some parting shots and thoughts for the week on Texas Tech and NC State. All coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider!
Good to be back with you all across West Texas, the United States of America, worldwide, or throughout the galaxy on Locked On Texas Tech. It's your team every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Casey Cowan with the only Chris Level, and want to tell you that today's episode brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline's got you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before in the history of man, is what I've read. BetOnline is where the game starts, and the show starts today, Chris, as we're wrapping up a week and getting into the weekend. Red Raiders and Wolfpack from Raleigh, North Carolina, coming up Saturday night. As we do on Fridays, look back to your weekly conversation on the radio with the head coach, Joey McGuire. And I guess I'm not surprised to hear you say this, but sounded like you were struck maybe first and foremost by the excitement of Coach McGuire for the challenge, because some coaches out there could be kind of wringing their hands and talking about how daunting it is, sold out on the road at night, number 16, number 12, depending on what poll you look at. But Coach McGuire seemed like that he was one of those that feels like these are the games I signed up for. And as a fan, these are the ones I come for as well, man.
Yeah, it's funny because not that anybody would in these situations go, oh man, I'm dreading this weekend, or this is going to be really tough. I hope people understand, whatever. And he's sitting there next to me, and Casey, he's basically like, it's going to be sold out. And he goes, I've never been up there before. He goes, I can't wait to get up there, man. It's going to be so much fun. And I'm thinking, all right then. I mean, and this is what he's saying to his guys.
Oh, sure.
And so that's part of why I think Joey is such a good coach, because it's not about X's and O's as much as it is he just gets his guys to believe, and whether he really believes it or not, it doesn't matter, because I believed him, and I was sitting right next to him, and I'm thinking like, you know what? Heck, man, I can't wait to go to Raleigh too. And I'm thinking, because I've been all week, I've been like, man, we're gonna get home late, and this is gonna be tough. But if you don't turn it over, you got a chance. I'm just kind of all over the place. And after being around him tonight, I'm just thinking like, let's get after it, man. Let's go. I can't wait. So it should be fun because it is sold out. It's they're blacking out the stadium. The team's gonna be wearing all black. The Red Raiders, I think, are wearing red helmet, white jersey, red pants, or something like that. I don't remember. They look like a candy cane, I guess, and some either white, or red, white, red, whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, it's just fun being around a guy that's so excited. And as he said in his opening press conference, I'll never forget this. I get to work here. I get to do this. I get to be at this place. I get to coach football. And he's living it right now, man. He is absolutely living it.
Yeah, and it seems like all too often there are coaches that forget that part of it. And for some reason, they forget that part of it while they're making multi-millions of dollars somehow, some way. But obviously, Joey McGuire is not at that point in his career yet where those types of things are lost on him. And I got to say, again, as a fan, Chris, I just, it's not lost on me the feeling you have in non-conference settings like what we've had this season compared to some others. And I know I've said this many, many times before, and I've said it on this show before in its short history with us at the helm. I hope that college football is trending toward more compelling non-conference matchups, because you actually could have maybe the best regular season in all of sports if you took care of some of these lightweight, basically weekend off non-conference weekends. And this is not one of those. So I'm excited to have one in the rear view that Texas Tech was successful within, but I'm glad that the program is involved with things like this too. And I hope to see a whole lot more of it to come maybe in years down the road.
Yeah, you know what's funny about this particular game is I've heard a lot of chatter about this, by folks that are talking about the Big 12 schedule this weekend and just kind of this game in particular. And this is a fun spot for Texas Tech to be in because, yes, we know that you got to win over Houston. And so I used to phrase these is like, man, this is like a free spin of the wheel. It's like, okay, you're going to win some prize. And if you spin the wheel and you come up, okay, you went bankrupt. Well, you didn't, you were going up there with just a free spin. It didn't really matter.
Right.
But if you get this done, I mean, if you pull this thing off, I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of talk about this football team. And there's going to be a lot of talk about Joey and Donovan and Zach Kitley and the job Tim DeRuyter's doing. And I don't care how you get it done up there. I don't care if you win at 7-6 or 35-33. It doesn't really matter. But if you pull it off, one, people are going to say NC State was a fraud. And two, they're going to be saying, look at the job that Joey McGuire has done, because this is kind of a fun spot to be in that you're a double-digit underdog. But again, if you pull it off, I mean, boy, there's going to be a lot that comes with that in a good way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And how pivotal was last week's game? I mean, you're talking about kind of what you're describing there, just playing with house money. And I think it's all because of last week's win as it relates to just first and foremost the pursuit of a postseason berth. And I know that we want to be pursuing much grander things, but right now that's kind of the beginning point, I think, from at least a fan base point of view for this season's conversation. But Chris, you get that win, and it had to alleviate a little bit of pressure because you knew you weren't going into this one 1-1 or potentially coming back to Lubbock to start out conference play at 1-2. So that was as pivotal as the second game of the season can be, I guess, whenever it relates to those types of aspirations.
Yeah, and because obviously Donovan Smith, I spent some time with him as well, and Joey made the comment. Joey's not the only one that's just kind of even keel and like excited and all these things, because Donovan Smith is a guy that he smiles a lot, and he just kind of whatever comes my way, I'm going to take it, and I'm not going to freak out. But Joey said something about, man, it's like in the second half, I went over there and you'd have thrown after maybe some of those turnovers. It's like I go over there and it's like you'd have thought that Donovan had already thrown for 8 touchdowns. Like he doesn't change who he is. And I think that pays off when you look back to this past weekend. And I asked Donovan, I'm like, man, do you just never kind of wig? You never kind of pretty even keel, pretty steady. And he goes, man, one time he said he gets it from his mom, okay, but he said one time he broke his finger and it's going crooked, and she walked up to him and he's looking at his hand going, oh my gosh, and she said, oh, you break your finger, it's going to be okay. And so he's like, I guess I was supposed to feel calm, and he goes, I've always just remembered that. And he just tries to stay pretty chill. And while some coaches that may bother them because it's like, man, you're too casual, and I don't get the sense that's how Donovan is. But it's just funny because I just don't think you can really rattle him, I guess is my point. And they're going against what may be, and don't think I'm stepping out there at all here, but they're going against what may be the best defense they'll see all season. There's 10 starters back in this group, and I think
whoa.
Yeah, I think they've got 10 guys that are 23 years old or older on their team. And so most of those guys have been there for 4 years-ish. And so that's a lot of continuity. And there's not a lot of draft pick type stuff on that side, okay? But I think there's just really good, solid college football players, and their scheme is wacko. I mean, so that's kind of what I talked to Zach Kitley about a little bit, and that he's gone against this thing before when he was on the staff here with Cliff, and they went against West Virginia, and Tony Gibson just throws it all at you. And it tries to confuse a young quarterback, and that's what you've got. So there'll be a lot put on Donovan because he's got to try to process rather quickly and avoids those mistakes. But yeah, I think I'm not stepping out there at all telling you this may be the best group on that side of the ball they see all season.
Interesting. And man, hopefully, regardless of the final score, that experience is of great benefit to Donovan Smith and really everyone. But you think about some young guys along that offensive line. You think about starting quarterback who is not completely green, but I guess still overall inexperienced. I mean, what's he got? A handful of games to his credit now. How many starts has Donovan made?
I think this weekend will be his 6th.
Okay,
I think
so
that's
yeah,
right.
I mean, half a season.
Yeah.
So anyway, could pay some dividends as you get into Big 12 play,
right?
With what you're going to face here on the other side of the football coming up this weekend. Did you think that Zach Kittley in visiting with him was exuding any different vibe or under any different pressure? Because I just felt like it was probably more tenuous on his side of the ball last week as it relates to the success or the outcome of the game. The defense was pretty solid and fairly consistently solid throughout the day, but there were some ups and downs for Coach Kittley's bunch. Did you pick up on any different mood this week with him?
Well, he said, because I mean they had 500 yards of offense or just right. Shy of that, and but he's like, we should have had 600 and we should have put the game away in the first half. That's his line of thinking. I mean, because
nobody knows how to lose a game with 500 yards of offense like Texas Tech.
Right. But that's where his expectations are. And I think Joey painted Zach with one of the best compliments I think you could do about just any coach, because Joey said something about Zach. I never really heard of, I guess, this kind of compliment about another coach. And I guess I hadn't thought about it, because we've seen a lot of these offensive guys that have come through here, no matter who's been the coordinator or the head coach, and whether you're the play caller or whatever, there's some ego there. There's some stats. Sure. There's some stubbornness that you get into. Like, I want to make sure we pad this, or we need to look good doing it, or whatever it may be. And there's maybe some truth to that. But he said the one thing about Zach is, he goes, I've learned this really quickly. He does not care at all how it gets done. If we run it 60 times, if we throw it 60 times, if we need to slow it way down, if we need to speed it way up, it does not matter to him on what his quarterback stats look like at the end of the year, or his running backs, or whatever. And I thought Joey made sure to point that out. And I think that's pretty high praise for a young coach like Zach, who's trying to find his way in this business. And, this is his first big real opportunity. And just that, no ego, I guess, is my point. And I think that says a lot about Zach. And because Joey said, I knew he was a good coach, but I had no idea like how smart he was and how selfless he was. And I think that's something to remember too about old Zach Kittley.
Well, something to remember, I think, for Zach Kittley is what you just said right there. If you need to run it 60 times, run it 60 times, because I really am thinking, I know that obviously the offensive line has got just about everything to do with that, Chris, but if you're not able to protect your quarterback, I wonder more so about involving those tight ends and using two running backs and that quarterback, though more so as a ball carrier in a really concerted rush effort kind of way. And I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, if Coach Kittley's got that kind of thing in him as a play caller to be that kind of fluid. And of course, I'm exaggerating saying run it 60 times. But you get the idea. Can you evolve in different situations? They've talked about that all offseason. It sounds great, but we haven't quite seen it in practice just yet. And I guess you still fairly – well, it's hard to say you've been balanced whenever you chucked it 58 times, even though you had a little extra time added onto the game last week. But you had a nice productive day with Taj Brooks. Would like to see more out of the ground game, but I'm curious to see week to week if you do kind of adapt like Coach Kittley says he wants to.
Yeah, and so in NC State's defense, they're going to here's what they're going to give you or entice you to try to do. They want you to try to run it wide, okay? And that's what they want, okay? You've got to try to stay disciplined and trying to run it in the middle because of the way that their scheme is. Because the way the scheme is, they really try to take away the middle of the field, and they're just almost like trying to show you, hey, man, you got all this space out here to the right and to the left, but then these safeties crash down, and that's the way the scheme is built, is really take that away and get downhill and tackle, and that's the way that their system is built. They also – so Taj and Sir Roderick really need to try to, create some one-on-one situations inside and try to win some of those matchups and really get it going there. So a lot will be on them. The other thing that they're going to do is they're going to give you man-to-man on the outside. And there's going to be some times where I think Donovan's going to take some shots down the field if that's what they give them. And you've got to play bully ball a little bit. You've got to go up and your big receivers, whether it's Bradley or Sparkman or Lowick or whoever, or the tight ends that you mentioned, you've got to win some of those 50-50 type balls, and you've got to come down with some of those catches. But again, just as easily, if it's slightly underthrown or whatever, or there could be a PI penalty, or you're just not real sure how those 50-50 shots, because if you overthrow it, okay, well, now we've just wasted it down, and now we're trying to run, and we're behind the chains. And we see it all kind of – but it's what West Virginia used to run. So I'm kind of fascinated to see – I'm ready to see them kind of take on that challenge, but it will not be easy. Not to, counter what Joey was trying to inject into my veins about being excited to be up there. I'm just trying to be realistic in that, in front of a packed house and sold out crowd, this defense is really, really good.
Well, I mean, you're talking to a guy that's from the land of 232 wham, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, A gap, B gap. I don't even know what the other lanes are for. We just needed the A and the B. What do you want to toss it around the edge? That cornerback's got a mother that loves him. We're not going to punish that guy that way. We're just sticking to the A and the B, baby. Yes. So it's run the damn ball week every week of my life. I know there needs to be some balance, but I would love to see, because Donovan Smith really can do some things physically for you as a ball carrier. And I would love to see maybe at some point, if it calls for it, really turning toward that type of edge with the two guys you got obviously around him as well. And some tight ends, baby, double tight, triple tight, leaking out that tight end deliberately like Kim K. I stole that line from somebody. Oh, the homeboy that was doing the Aggie Appalachian State film session breakdown. Look it up on Twitter. And that line among the best. But again, Chris, adapting, easier said than done. And when you've been working on what you want to work on, these are my plays. This is my pride, which Tyler Shuck told me prior to the season is not getting in the way of Zach Kitley. So it's some of these moments where we figure that out. And he's still a pretty young guy. So I'm curious to see kind of how you balance that confidence with being humble in the face of what the game's kind of giving you from week to week. It's a hell of a lot easier said than done. I know that. Thank God I just got to talk about doing those types of things. Something that is as easy done as it is said. Heading to BetOnline, which is your number one resource for all the action, all the angles on the action, college, professional football, and well beyond. Combat sports, professional baseball, basketball, esports, whatever you're into. Head on over to BetOnline right now and get started. They make it incredibly easy on you to track what you're doing with BetOnline, but of course, keep up with your favorite team on Saturdays. It's HQ for live betting stats and scores, and the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite events. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about what the trends are looking like this week. Got an interesting slate in the Big 12 Conference. BetOnline has all the latest. We're going to swing back to that slate coming up before we're done here today. But you don't have to wait for that conversation. Check out the latest on it and much, much more right now at BetOnline, where the game starts. You got it. It's Locked On Texas Tech with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks for making us your first listen. Once again, your team every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Coming up before we're done today, we are taking a look at the slate of ball games in the Big 12 Conference, get in on some of the action. And I got some feedback, Chris, from our equine grading scale conversation. A few other things they'd like to see actually in future masked riders out there in Raiderland. So I want to get to that before the show is over as well. But let's stick to between the hash marks here for the time being and go back to a guy that we were mentioning a little bit earlier. You got to visit with on the Joey McGuire radio show this week in the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week. Donovan Smith, and was considering a question that I thought was maybe a little bit more difficult to answer this week than I considered at first glance. Lay of the land in the Big 12 Conference, starting quarterbacks, available, healthy starting quarterbacks. And that's really, I think, probably why this conversation became more interesting. Could anybody make an argument that Donovan Smith is a top choice? Is he a top 2 kind of choice among the 3 best options presently available among healthy starting quarterbacks in the Big 12 Conference? I'm not so sure it's so easy to slough that off, Chris. So I wanted to pose it to you. How are you seeing the breakdown with some guys more prominent than others in and out of starting lineups now and maybe set to miss some time? Seen it here in Lubbock ourselves when it comes to Donovan Smith and his colleagues elsewhere among starting quarterbacks in the conference.
Yeah, I think this is a fascinating conversation, and it's one I'd love to kind of revisit, maybe even weekly, because I think that as this list goes, or as your thoughts here, is really how the league race may go, and that's what. Because I think this season in the Big 12, it's supposed to be kind of one of the most wide open and competitive races and deeper races we've seen in a long time, and mostly because there is not a no-brainer like top guy or tier in this group of quarterbacks. I think they're all actually pretty good, but I think there's going to be some inconsistency mixed in, and you're not looking at some big-time pro prospect of anybody in the group. And I think that's what's going to make for a fascinating league race, because some days some guys on this list are going to catch fire and look lights out, and we're going to go, okay, well, and then other times I think they're going to kind of come back down to earth. That's the beauty of it. But right now, to me, if we're talking like quarterback rankings or power rankings or confidence rankings, however we want to do that, Spencer Sanders is to me the top guy. He's beaten Arizona State. He's beaten Central Michigan. He's looked good doing it. He's got, I think, the most rushing numbers of any quarterback in the Big 12. He hadn't really made many mistakes yet, just the one interception, I think. And again, in years past, that he's had some issues there. But to this point this year, we haven't seen it. And he looked really good in that opener. But I think that's where you start looking at it and go, okay, after you move Spencer Sanders over here in this one category and maybe move him off to the side, Donovan Smith actually belongs right there in the next conversation. I mean, I think with Jalen Daniels, who goes and pull the kid at Kansas, who goes off and pulls a big time upset up there in West Virginia. And keep in mind, we know how bad Kansas has been. I mean, they have been rock bottom, one of the worst Power 5 programs that there's been. So the fact that they go pull off Big 12 a road win, and he looks really good doing it, says a lot. I think Donovan and Jalen Daniels are in that. I think Max Duggan, Casey, who didn't start the season. I think Chandler Morris started for TCU against Colorado, and then Max Duggan came in, and he's done kind of what Donovan Smith has done and really just rolled. However, it was a blowout second half against Colorado, and then they were home against Tarleton. So I don't know how much credit you give him there, because I don't know if does the road win at Colorado and what he did and able to put that thing away compared to a win over a ranked Houston team? I don't know. We can debate that. And then the other one is Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma. I just don't think they've done anything that impressive. They haven't left. They beat UTEP and they beat Kent State, and he's looked pretty good, not overwhelming. But it just goes to show you there's a lot of mid-tier or maybe the upper tier is pretty big if you want to phrase it that way. And you got guys like Hunter Deckers that went and won at Iowa, but they scored 10 points. I mean, so do we give him a ton of credit? Adrian Martinez has looked pretty good, but his stats aren't very good at all. And he's only, I don't even think he's completing 60% of his passes, although Kansas State has looked pretty good. So it's a fun conversation, and it just speaks to how wide open this race is.
Yeah, no doubt. And I was a little surprised how quickly, and I think I would agree in that Donovan Smith would be right there behind Spencer Sanders. And if I had to choose one or the other today, and I gave maybe Donovan Smith, Spencer Sanders' offensive line, I'm not so sure I wouldn't take Donovan Smith outright. I mean, I've seen Spencer Sanders be the other team's best player. And thankfully it was Texas Tech that day, but we know what he can do as well. And whenever he emerges as the cream of the crop, I don't know what it says about the crop otherwise, but it says that maybe that top spot is kind of up for grabs, or should be, like you said, maybe something to be observed from week to week, because there's not just some runaway cat that's got, professional type pedigree and yada, yada, yada. But I was a little bit surprised how quickly I wanted to get to Max Duggan. And some of this is just like Red Raider PTSD, just guys that like hurt us or helped us in the past, I guess. So like, I can't forget that Sanders was loving on the Red Raiders over and over once upon a time at the Jones. And I can't forget that Max Duggan was just making these clutch plays with his feet once upon a time in Fort Worth to bury Texas Tech. And I thought, wow, Max Duggan's still in the league? He's still in college, for crying out loud?
The name that I didn't mention that I think a lot of people felt like, okay, this is the guy that's going to take a next step. And the fact that we've talked about all these guys, and not that he's played poorly, but Blake Shapen at Baylor takes over, causes Gary Bohannon to transfer to South Florida. And I think Shapen's numbers aren't bad. He hasn't thrown an interception. He's just got 3 touchdown passes. His numbers are somewhat modest. They had a big blowout win. But the game at BYU, they didn't turn him loose, or they didn't really throw the ball down the field. They were very conservative. And I think there's some, not criticism, but maybe some regret on the way that game was called from a play calling standpoint and all that. But they didn't really. So do they really trust Blake Shapen? I mean, because against the Oklahoma State Cowboys in that Big 12 title game last year, that game that he started, he looked pretty darn good. And so and we probably haven't seen, what he can do yet this year. I'm just saying, but in the small sample size that we've got, I don't know if you can include him, because they lost that game, and he hasn't just put up these gaudy numbers, and he hasn't been bad by any means, but just about 300 yards and 3 tutties and no interceptions. But anyway, it's a fun conversation, man, and I think we could be kind of shuffling this order a lot as we go forward here in the coming weeks. Yeah,
possibly. And I'm probably just sleeping on Shapen, because I mean, you have a tight road loss to number 21, I think.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, I forgot to even put him on my list. That's probably not a great idea. So we'll revisit this maybe.
Yeah, probably.
If he and the Baylor Bears, which I'm sure they will redeem themselves another week. All right. Those were Big 12 quarterbacks. We'll talk Big 12 teams coming up dead ahead. A look around the league heading into week 3. And we'll have some final parting shots and thoughts on the Red Raiders and North Carolina State before we are done. That is up ahead on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, we have got to remind you of our good friends in Hale Center, Texas, at Flatlands Grain, centrally and conveniently located just 30 quick minutes north of Lubbock, and looking to build lasting relationships, provide reliable service all across the South Plains ag communities this fall to take care of you and your families, whether it's something along a truckload, thousands of bushels, market analysis, crop analysis, just taking care of feeding the animals. There's no job too small for them to take care of you at Flatlands Grain. And, Chris, young audience here so far for Locked On Texas Tech, and there are young farmers, young ranchers out there. You need somebody dependable to build a relationship with. You want to be able to relax when you're calling somebody on the phone or having to deal with them in person. These are the people at Flatlands Grain that I'm talking about, the ones that are going to make it easy on you. You know what that feeling's like, where you're like, I gotta call this guy, but I'm not going to enjoy any part of it.
I mean, why would you not want to deal with somebody that'll feed your animals?
That's right.
I mean, seriously,
Red Raider.
Check your crops and feed your animals. That's just a couple of things that they do. I mean, like, why would you not want to sign up for that or engage right there, man? Somebody that is willing to feed your animals for you. No, man, we know what West Texas is all about, and the agriculture and all the things that come with it. And we dropped the hashtag West Texas on there, man. But yeah, check these boys out, man. Flatland Grains, and this is what makes this part of the state go, man. And these are Red Raiders, so we certainly appreciate you supporting them.
Yeah, I have seen the man that you'll get on the phone full-throated in support of Texas Tech. east side, west side, parking lot, inside, outside, doesn't matter. Red Raider.
I bet he wasn't throwing any beer either.
No, I have not seen him waste a drop. Does conserve that precious liquid. So Joey McGuire would be very proud of our buddy Jonathan at Flatlands Grain. So give Jonathan a call to take care of your grain storage needs or otherwise. Listen, your daddy's grain guy ain't going to be around forever. Grandpa's grain guy, he's already gone or he's passed it down to some other cat. He's not going to be dependable for you. It's time to build that lasting and reliable relationship, and you can do it with our friends at Flatlands Grain. Visit their website, flatlandsgrain.com, or give them a call at 806-839-2522, or again, check out flatlandsgrain.com. Locked On Texas Tech, yours every day on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast. Please do subscribe on YouTube. Appreciate all of those out there of you who have saddled up so far. Still hovering just a little under. We've improved on the number, Chris, but about 57% of the viewers on YouTube not subscribed, just strolling through the neighborhood like a weirdo, man. Why don't you go ahead and buy a property and put down some roots? All right. We'd love to have you. We're inviting you, right? Come on in.
We definitely need you to hit subscribe, man. Hit that little bell button or whatever, man, and make sure that it gets dropped into your YouTube feed every day. We need it. Management, man, they're holding our feet to the fire, man. They're like, man, you got to get those numbers up or this thing goes away.
That's right. And they've got the plug in their hand. I mean,
yeah, it's ready to
get a little choked up just thinking about it.
Ready to pull it.
Yeah. Chris, before we get to this weekend in the Big 12, what'd you think of the resume and results last weekend? Because I know it was a mixed bag, but there were some pretty nice wins for the league. Those members currently in it, like right now, last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was actually, I think what Kansas State did to Missouri, I think, we focused off, obviously, a lot of what Texas Tech did. I thought, I'm not even going to mention, like, the Texas moral victory thing. I'm just going to throw that out because that doesn't.
Spend $135 million on sports. Give me a break.
Yeah, that's right. Moral victory, my ass.
Yeah.
I think I thought we felt like Baylor would have played. I guess I thought they would be a bit better there. Especially with BYU missing their top two wideouts. But I think so far, the Big 12 has really shown itself fairly well. But again, there's more tests, coming, and there's not that much on tap this weekend that'll give you a gauge on the league just yet. But I think to this point, I think it's been pretty, I'm trying to think, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know if anything else stuck out to me from last weekend that I haven't mentioned yet.
I think what you touched on there is what every Big 12 fan was kind of taken away from, at least outside of what we were doing here in Lubbock. But you seem kind of like you're just dismissing Towson, unbeaten, heading to Morgantown, West Virginia to take on the only beaten West Virginia Mountaineers. 2-0, 0-2 right there. Look out. Look out.
Well, and that was a game last weekend. Again, that's a conference game, and it kind of snuck under the radar. But that's a pretty big win for Kansas, man. I mean, let's just, you're going to celebrate a road win in the league no matter when you can get it. And
100%
for them, their win total, but from Vegas is like 1.5, 2.5, or something like that. To go pull one off right out of the gate with a chance to move to 3-0 this weekend and going down to Houston. I mean, look out! And then they host. It could be a basketball schools clash next weekend in Lawrence because Duke comes to town. So if they're 3-0, I bet that place is. I bet that place is jacked because they just haven't had no reason to be excited.
True.
In September in a long time, really since I guess 2009, maybe when Mangino was there.
They may just rush the field at kickoff. They're so excited to be watching a winning football team.
You do remember this is and I'm trying to remember who the opponent was, but this is the school that when they were hanging in there, I want to say this was maybe last year or the year before, and it was like, hey, The gates are open. If you're out
Right.
there and you want to come watch this game, man, just come on in, whoever you
Well,
are here.
I thought you were going to reference didn't Kansas rush the field after beating like a MAC team or something?
Yeah,
not too long ago?
and I get it, and I'm not trying to do the fan book thing like you talked about. I don't want to be the
Very
moral
good, Chris.
the moral compass on because again, they haven't had a lot to celebrate there, but I got
Go
a kick
wild,
out of
man. Go nuts, kids.
The gates are open, man. If you're out there and you're at a bar or whatever, come on in. Come watch
on
the end of
back.
this thing. Just free. Yeah.
Hey, I've heard from a few Red Raiders who were on their way out last weekend and heard something on the concourse that pulled
Did a
them back
U-turn?
in.
Yeah,
Did a
U-turn, man. Yeah, that's
Which,
right.
by the way, we have got to get bigger TVs and more on the concourse. What are we doing? I got friends' kids watch bigger TVs in their bedrooms than what we've got stacked out on the
I don't know if
go.
I've never seen them. I don't even know what the concourse
shocked,
looks
Chris.
like. Okay,
You'd be shocked.
Okay.
I mean, you would sell more beer. I feel like if there is such a possible thing, you would sell more beer, more everything if you had bigger TVs on the concourse. Okay, I don't know why I brought that up. Oklahoma, Nebraska. Let's begin with the Big 12 slate. Oklahoma -11 on the road from Lincoln. That's the early kickoff at 11. I'm surprised, Chris, the number is not bigger for the Sooners. I got to be honest, because Nebraska looks like one of the trashiest trash football teams of all time, potentially.
Yeah, you get, keep in mind, I think that people expected a blowout in this game last year and again, Nebraska was kind of a disaster last year, and they played it in a bunch of close games, though. We know 5-22 is Scott Frost's record, but this was a 23-16 game in Norman last year. And I think that I'm guessing Vegas takes this into consideration, but a lot of times when there's a coaching change, there's kind of this rallying cry, and you've got Mickey Joseph. I had to make sure I said his name right. He's the interim head coach, and look, Oklahoma, they know Nebraska's quarterback well, and Casey Thompson, obviously playing him at Texas the last couple of years, and but this thing could be, and I think people are not real sure how good Oklahoma is yet. That was a 3-0 Kent State game up until right at the end of the first half last week. And when Marvin Mims, I think, caught a touchdown pass to give them the 7-3 lead. So Oklahoma hasn't just been gangbusters. They've also only given up, I think, 16 points total on the season. So their defense is going to be pretty good. But I have no idea what kind of effort Nebraska will get you. But I bet Vegas thinks that they'll kind of rally, and maybe it'll last, maybe it won't. We'll see.
Maybe so. Mickey Joseph's a former Husker, right?
I believe there's some ties there, yes.
You ain't getting that job. They ain't hiring another Husker.
Yeah.
Scott Frost screwed that up for like the next 20 years. And maybe Cliff Kingsbury did the same thing at Tech. I don't know. But they ain't going right back to another player.
Yeah. No.
Best of luck, Mick. Best of luck.
Yeah.
Get out of here, Matt Campbell. Go to the Big Ten. Kansas, Houston, 2:00 kickoff. Houston, I think an 8.5-point favorite here.
I bet there's a lot of points scored in this game, man. I really do.
Over under.
And I'll be curious how Houston bounces back, Casey, because I Dana was just like, stupid. We just did all these dumb things. I think Houston's pretty salty. It's their first home game, but I think Kansas is kind of like going on the road here, and it's much like the Tech game we talked about. In that, in a way, this is it's a free shot. You get it done, look out. If you don't, okay, you got a conference win under your belt that you can feel good about, and you're getting to go home and play Duke next weekend. But I think Jalen Daniels he's legit now, but I'll just be interested to see how Houston plays in this one, because if Clayton Tune plays his normal game, I think that Kansas will be in trouble.
I feel like Houston is going to be in a spot where going to be the better football team, or more talented football team, I should say. Are they going to be the better football team or better coached football team? I'm not so sure. And I've seen Coach Holgerson, really pleading to the fans, like, please come out. We wanted to be in this spot in the Big 12. We're here now, and this is a future conference game. Please come out, yada, yada, yada. I bet the showing is trash. I bet that there is nothing out of the ordinary, I guess I should say, because Kansas is not going to be the opponent that's going to drag your fans out after you lose in Lubbock the week before. So I don't think that part of it's going to go well for them. But I think I may take the Jayhawks and the points here.
Okay, there you go.
So -8.5 right now, but probably Houston to be winners and bounce back overall after a loss in Lubbock. Texas and UTSA. It's like coach and coach in waiting are going ahead and settling it right now. I think Traylor just takes over after the game if he wins this one. Minus 12.5. Longhorns, the favorites there in Austin, courtesy of our friends at BetOnline. 59.5 is the over under, man. They got a whole world of things to think about in Austin right now when it comes to Longhorn football. So how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, Steve Sarkisian has contradicted himself a ton this week on moral victories and rat poison, trying to channel his Nick Saban, and
Right.
he doesn't want. He's just all over the place. And then he tells everybody, it's not my job to tell you if Hudson Card is healthy enough to play and give you the game plan here or not. So he's being coy with because Hudson Card came in and had that ankle issue. I think right at the end of the first half, and then really played with it the second half. But I think it wasn't just nothing. And so UTSA, though, this is just one of these scary teams to try to play. If I'm a Big 12 team, I'm not putting Traylor's team on the schedule, man, because if you beat them, so what? That's what most people are going to say. And they can absolutely give you all you want. They went to Army last weekend, won a game in overtime, so they lose the first week in overtime, win one this weekend. I think they've got a really good quarterback in Frank Harris. So depending on the quarterback situation for Texas, I mean, I'd be really careful if I was old Sark, because if his quarterback is compromised and they're feeling good about their little moral victory that they got, look out, because Traylor may put on that Longhorn visor at the end of the game and say, Sark, your services are no longer needed. So.
And then Gary Patterson's gonna be back there saying, "Can I
Wait,
stay?
hold on. Yeah,
Can I stay?"
No, it was supposed to be my job, man. I get to pull my pants up in Austin.
I feel like I might get spanked on this one, but I kind of like the Roadrunners in the points here. I don't know, man. I'm just so jaded as a Tech fan when it comes to the Longhorns and thinking about the talent that's on that roster every year. And even if they're not coached well, they got no heart, they got no culture. They're softer than Charmin. All the things that you hear people say, like the entire world say about the Longhorns, like, they couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. I'm not saying these things. Other people were saying, like, the world is saying these things, right? Yeah. Even though you hear all of that, the roster is talented as it always is, Chris. And from Texas to UTSA, there's still just got to be a major, major difference. But I guess if I was heading to BetOnline, I'd be putting my money on heart and belief and desire and hunger by saying that I think it's UTSA plus 12.5. I don't know if they can actually pull it off, but I'm just so down on what Texas is from an intangible standpoint. And probably Traylor is among the best in the country when it comes to the state of his program's intangibles, right? I mean, they play with their hair on fire.
Yes, and he coaches like his. I mean, him and Joey, man, are so similar. I mean, I thought that the Dave Campbell's cover really is kind of the next wave, man, in this state as far as college football coaches, because these dudes, you could drop them in any scenario around any kind of company, no matter who you're around, and they're going to fit in and have you eaten out of the palm of their hand, man. But I hope they pull it off. I think it'd be kind of fascinating to see what Texas would look like coming in off of a loss to UTSA into Lubbock next weekend. But I'll be paying attention to this result just because you're right. The Longhorns, man, they're headed to Lubbock next weekend. Do you want them fat and happy? Do you want them, lost? Maybe they just suck. I don't know. Maybe they're really good. Maybe the moral victory really should count. I don't know.
We'll take them any way we can get them and slice them up 6 days from Sunday whenever they get here, I guess. I'm afraid at how much I'm believing in Texas Tech plus 10. I'm a little frightened by that because I keep just looking at things on paper, Chris, and I'm really buying into what it could mean for the Red Raiders. Can you pull off an upset outright? I'm not so sure, but you and I talked about, as an example, this week, quarterback's ability to escape pressure. I think I might like our guy a little bit better in that situation, and I also think I might like our defense's chances of pressuring Devin Leary. I also think about the turnover column, which is kind of scary for Texas Tech because North Carolina State's defense, I think 5 in only 2 games. Your defense hadn't collected many, and their quarterback hasn't given it up very often, 35-5. was the TD to interception ratio a season ago. So is something going to break Tech's way there? I'm not so sure about that, but there are some things up front for Tech defensively, possibly their ability to run the football. And if things are just hairy and breaking down all the time offensively, possibly a chance to hurt them with a little bit more mobile or physical ball carrying quarterback. I don't know if I could pull the trigger on picking Texas Tech outright, but I think I'm expecting them to probably cover that 10 and make it a one-score affair in the fourth quarter. And it frightens me a little bit how quickly I'm believing again.
Yeah, the last comment I'll make before we wrap this thing up is if you don't turn it over, you're going to, I think, like what you see. If you turn it over, I don't see a recipe for being able to get this thing done. But if you play clean and just play it straight up, and I think you'll be able to gain enough yards and score enough points where you're going to be in this thing. And I think that's what a lot of people are. I think Texas Tech's kind of a sneaky pick, but if you go throw it to them a bunch or put it on the turf, man, I just don't think you're good enough at this point against that team to get out of there with a win. But
forget the points, forget the win, forget about top 25 hosting Texas. I totally agree. I mean, I don't know how you can do that on the road against a team like that and hope to survive. So only time will tell. Can't wait to find out with the biggest test yet for the Red Raiders. Chris, of course, will be on the sideline there as part of the call from Raleigh coming up on Saturday night. And I don't know if that's going to be your look for the sideline, but I like it, man. You're kind of like the old kid on the block. Like you're about to head to get some digits or something out at the South Plains Mall, man. You feeling young? Joey McGuire's got you feeling young, it seems like.
Yeah, I will not be rocking the backwards hat on the sideline in Raleigh, man. No, I won't do it.
Well, travel safe, my man, and enjoy a place that I've never been to. I don't know what to expect.
It's lots of hills and trees, man. A lot different than Lubbock, but I still like the desert out here in West Texas better. Yeah, there you go.
We'll get back safe, man. Enjoyed it this week once again, and we'll be able to chop it all up on the other side of game number 3. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Appreciate you for making Locked On Texas Tech your first listen. Make your second listen Locked On Big 12 with Josh Neighbors, all here as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll have coverage coming up for you on the other side of the final buzzer Saturday night from Raleigh. And then, of course, back to do it again next week. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time around on Locked On Texas Tech.